WFPRLP Franklin on 102.9 FM.
Seven, close enough to seven. This isn't horseshoes, so we're good. Call to order the May 8th budget hearings for the Finance Committee. First order of business is public comments. Anybody? Come on, guys, last meeting we had 3 people, which is a record for us. Guess not. FY25 Town Administrator's Budget, Public Safety. First up, 210, the Police Department.
Yep, so through you, Mr. Chairman, the numbers are right up on the screen, and Deputy Chief West is here. The chief was unable to be here tonight due to a conflict, but and Laura Graver's here, who handles the budget on behalf of the department. You know, go through line item by line item, and in terms of what I think Chief Lynch always mentions is, you know, 97% of his budget are police, and as you can see from the expense line item, you know, it's been pretty consistent over a bunch of years, and you can see the expense in personnel and salaries. People usually always ask me, you know, why so many line items? Well, in the collective bargaining agreement, all of those accounts in the personnel and salary line item come from different provisions in the collective bargaining agreement. Then I always get asked from people all the time too, what's in the collective bargaining agreement? We've posted them all online. They're right on the HR webpage, and people can go read them. HR director has done an amazing job over the years cleaning up all of those contracts, and we've had very good labor relations with the police and fire departments. What you see is what you get.
Okay. Any comments?
I have
Deputy?
just a general question of how it works. When people do private home projects, they pay for a police detail, right?
Yeah, if it affects public safety, like they're on the roads, blocking
Yeah.
the streets, yes.
And so does that income net against the salaries?
That's totally separate.
That's a separate
So
line item?
it goes into a revolving account, I
Yeah.
believe, and they're paid out of that separate.
Yeah, okay.
There's a slight administrative fee that
Yeah.
goes into a revolving account. And those revolving accounts have to be authorized by the council every year, and there's a cap in each account at how much money can be brought in. And we haven't changed any of those in a lot of years, just because the numbers that are there are pretty solid.
Yeah, okay, just curious, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you didn't ask the detail rate.
It's
Because
a
we
lot.
pay if you're a town project, you know, DPW, we build it into the cost of the project as
Into the
well.
project, yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Anybody else? It's gonna be simple. I don't see any issues, then there's no adds to staff, correct?
58 sworn, nope, no additions
That's
this
it,
year.
that hasn't changed since last year,
Correct.
That's right.
mid-year.
That's correct. And you will notice, I think the chief mentioned this at a recent meeting, that if you look into the budget narrative, you'll see the impact of those officers. I think a lot of you knew a couple years ago, the #1 complaint in town was speeding and traffic enforcement. And I do want to commend the police. They're not issuing tickets every time, right? We're not
No, they don't.
trying to give people tickets. But if you look at the violations, I believe the Deputy Chief West went up like 98%, so almost double.
Right.
So those officers are having a real impact, not only on hopefully public safety, traffic enforcement, parking enforcement, speeding, which is really what most people's concerns of, but the biggest value of that additional shift, in my opinion, is one that doesn't get talked about much, which is forced overtime. Our officers to recruit talented young folks, I'd say probably the fire department as well. I wish I was 28 again, because I wish I had all this time on my hands or I had a value where, you know, by being forced into overtime, you don't have a choice. And that means a lot of extra hours and time away from your family and your children. And if we want to encourage being an organization that really prioritizes that, particularly hiring a lot of female officers, which we've hired, I believe, 6 in the last 7 years, we need to make sure that those issues are in the collective bargaining agreement. That additional shift is preventing a lot of additional forced overtime, and as the chief mentioned, I think last week, morale is really boosted up from that.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
when people say to me like, well, how does the override or how do those things affect police officers? Well, the chief spoke to that last week. You know, if cuts were made either FY '25 or '26 and you lose a shift of police officers, you know, that overtime and that forced overtime is gonna go way up, and that has a real impact on the quality of life, and actually has a big impact, in my opinion, on whether or not we are able to even recruit people into the field. You know, we had a couple of really, really talented mid-level officers leave the field a couple of years ago. I don't want to mention their names, but they were really great officers who had a lot of experience and just said, you know, with the forced overtime and the pay issues, we're just going to go into a whole nother field. Lastly, I'll just point out the Secretary of Public Safety for the governor about a month ago said this about both paramedics and police officers. There is going to be an enormous shortage on both. So if we want to have qualified people even want to be paramedics, firefighters, and be in law enforcement, you know, we have to make it a job that is much more sustainable for families if they're going to get in to do that. The old days are gone where people, well, there's still a few, but most people don't do 20 hours of extra details and overtime every month. They're not working 60, 65-hour weeks at all anymore. Like my dad did when he was a dispatcher. He took every double shift he could, right? Time and a half, right? You probably did when you were in patrol,
Absolutely.
right? So,
I did, yeah.
you know, I just want to mention a few of those additional little points. Thank you.
Anybody? Just cameras. If we still don't do it, I take it, there's a commission or something, is that anywhere near being resolved? Because I just think it's a protection for the cop, perhaps more than anyone else.
I agree, it is a protection, but we've done a cost-benefit analysis for our department. The amount of complaints that we have is very small because of the professional department I think that we have. So in the cost of the data storage for these body cameras is astronomical. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars just to store the data. And then you would need to hire someone to do public redactions if people request it. So the cost for those cameras far outweigh the benefits that we'd receive from it. So,
One lawsuit would wipe that out, just saying.
Yeah, you know, we're in a, I think part of it, you know, you're in a budget deficit, and then a lot of departments have to collectively bargain those issues. You know, I'd say this, if the Commonwealth goes through that commission that you just spoke of, and they come out with a recommendation, my position would stand as, we're happy to do it. And I think the chief and the deputy chief have never opposed the concept. But last year, if you want to hire another shift of officers, or if you want to do body cameras, I think at the end of the day, the points that we just spoke to far outweigh the additional cameras. I would look at the state and say, show us the money.
I
If you want us to do it, we're happy to do it. We're not having objection here. Even from the rank and file officers, I think a lot of officers coming into the field probably expect that at this point. But I would look at the Commonwealth if they put out a report. For those of you who are unfamiliar with unfunded mandates, I would call that an unfunded mandate. If they come out and say we should do something, I'd say show me the money and we'll do it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Last thing, we touched on it kind of briefly, but the recruitment, I know that's been a challenge in terms of you have to like sponsor people in the academy and all of that just to get that pipeline. How is the pipeline right now? Is there empty spots that we haven't been able to fill, or are we in good shape?
we're full right now, 58. We are anticipating trying to get one on board and put him into the academy soon, with anticipation of retirement coming up in October, so trying to get ahead of it. We're using a new company to help us with that recruitment, and it's called, I don't know if I can mention the company, Get Badged, but they put us in contact with people who are interested. We ran a PT test, so we're going through that process. So it's slow, they're trickling in, it's not like it used to be. I think the PT test we ran had 8 people, where we'd had hundreds before. So it's not like it used to be. But we are getting ahead of it, we do have a candidate in mind, so we're moving forward, so.
And the
Great.
funding for that academy is in this budget to replace an anticipated retirement. And because the collective bargaining agreement now incentivizes retirement notice of 3, 6, or 9 months, you get a larger percentage of your vacation paid out, for example, if you give us heads up. That has been a huge provision that we've put in both the fire and police that's given us 9 months, 6 months notice of when someone's going to retire. And that's exactly Deputy Chief West's point. We're able to spend that time to get them the field training in the academy so we can have someone hit the ground right upon retirement.
That's great.
Oh, easy night tonight.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Easy night, and he gets to watch the puck drop. Nice job, Timmy. Nice job, Westy. Yeah, right. Well, we're gonna anticipate a quick one this time.
Next up,
George, I
the
just
fire department.
Just wanted to let him know that Chana is on too.
I'll try.
Just, I'll make a note as the brass is walking my way.
Boy, they are.
George,
Joe?
George, I just want to let you know.
I know. Hope everybody's okay.
They are.
Yeah, okay.
Just a personal note, at 4:30 this afternoon, I called Mr. Primo's group for an ambulance. My sister up here at 485 East Central. There are many times that at that time of the day, they would have had to go to Rentham or somewhere to get an ambulance. We didn't have to, because we're running a third one at key times now. And I make that point because time is critical. And that, before I hung up with Gary's person, I could hear the sirens coming, so.
That's great.
And they,
That's a great story, and actually, serendipitous transition to the budget. The line items are up here. If you can see, there's a little cost increase. Certainly, the personnel services and the salaries, the increase there are twofold. So one is general contractual obligations in the contract, but in my view, to your point, Mr. Chairman, more importantly, this is the only new hiring that the town is proposing on the municipal side, which is a few other additional paramedics. I'll let the chief explain why that's important. And just to note for the public, number one, the fire department has gotten into a great rhythm with their ALS and BLS rates. We're updating those now every year to make sure we're in the middle of the pack regionally, but as you could recall, several years ago, we were way behind on those. I give a lot of credit to the EMS division within the fire department for staying on top of that, making sure we're capturing the revenue for the services that they provide. Also, it's important to note that when you get the additional shift, you also reduce overtime. We've been through this before, and people say, well, what's so important about the 4 and 4 schedule with the police department and the fire department reforms that we've done in the collective bargaining agreement? Well, the big reduction in those line items has been the reduction in overtime. When you have those money shifts, you don't have to call in as many people, and that's time and a half, and then on Sundays it's more, on holidays it's more, and so it really does result in a lot of savings from the overtime budget. So I'll let the chief speak to the additional paramedics and any other questions all of you have.
Mr. Chairman, I was afraid that story was gonna go bad. This wasn't gonna be a good day to have a bad experience.
then there was a fire right after.
Yeah, but there was a lightning strike on Partridge, yeah, everybody's okay, it's all good. Yep, so. Paramedics, so, the proposal for the FY '25 is to put 3 additional paramedics on. As you remember, last year, we added 2 to the department, last July. We had a daytime position, and then we had 1 position, that works with that day position. So in essence, I think the best way to describe it is there's 168 hours in a work week. 40 of those hours is 25% of the week. We have that extra ambulance in service, 40 business hours during the course of the week. The other 128 hours of the week, we won't have that ambulance in service. Right now, each one of our 4 shifts has got 13 firefighters assigned to it. 11 is our minimum man, and we never go below 11 firefighters on duty, 6 at headquarters and 5 at the outlying station, Station 2. Now, if it's approved, those 3 extra firefighters, each of those 4 shifts will have 14 firefighters assigned. During those 40 business hours, the minimum man will be 12. So that 12th firefighter will work with that day position and man that 3rd ambulance. Those other hours, those other 128 hours, which is 3 24-hour shifts and 4 14-hour shifts, we go back to 11. And that way, and we don't have that extra personnel, our minimum is 11. Our policy is to have no more than 3 firefighters out on a shift on holiday or vacation. Right now at 13 and 11, if all 3 are out, the first 2 are covered with a straight time firefighter. That 3rd one is covered by a time and a half firefighter. Now, with this extra personnel, those 128 hours beyond the peak time during the week, we're gonna have 11 and 14. We'll have 14 assigned with 11 as our minimum. So when those 3 firefighters are out on holiday or vacation, we've got the bench on each group to cover them with a straight time firefighter. We just took a random week, April 7th to April 13th. Not much was going on, not much extra training was going on that week. If that was the formula for that week, it'd be a savings of $5,229 for the week. So if you times that by 52, that'd be $271,000. That's not an accurate number because we're going to have some weeks that get a lot of training going on. But I think we could safely project that we'd see about $225,000 to $250,000 in saving from the overtime budget if this formula is implemented with the extra personnel. Plus, we've got that 3rd ambulance in service that provides that added coverage for the folks. Just to give you an idea on the numbers, A3, we put that in service last October. We started around last October. For those 3 months, we had 38 calls. And from January of this year till today, we had 69. So since last October, we've had 107 calls that ambulance took. That's 107 less mutual aid companies that had to come in here. So it's a win-win-win. We've got an ambulance getting there quicker. We're putting less of a strain on the mutual aid towns to provide that service. And we are capturing that income as well with that lost revenue for those 100 runs. So we project with the A3 for a full 12-month period, we project that would bring in about $160,000 to $175,000 in additional ambulance transport revenue.
And just so you know, the salaries that the chief just spoke to, you pretty much cover the salaries with the economic model that he just said. So you're getting more people for basically almost a budget neutral situation. Not exact, these are projections looking out a year or 2. You gotta let it go through a full year to but essentially when you look at the starting salaries at the different levels that we're anticipating, that policy basically pays for itself.
Are you gonna be able to get them?
Yeah, so we opened up our application process April 1st, and we got the full month of May to go. We've got about a dozen applicants right now. Probably 3 of them do not have their medic, but the rest do. And we have some good, credible candidates right now, and we still have about 3 weeks to go. The last 4 or 5 years, half of our new hires have been transfers from other departments. We do have some looking to come over now as well right now as transfers. But we're working hard with I know I just listened to the end with the police. We're trying hard with the recruitment. It's an issue for everybody. We're working hard with the school department. We were working with Dean. We'll wait till they get settled down, new leadership, and we'll relook at that process to get their paramedic program going back again. They do not have the paramedic program no longer at Dean. We'd like to be part of that partnership with Dean to maybe get that going right in town. But the high school's been really good. We're trying to get an opportunity that maybe perhaps a senior that graduates from Franklin High School, if they're interested, could walk the stage with an EMT degree, and then they just got to get their medic when they get out of high school. And some high schools, I believe, in the Commonwealth are doing that, and that's something that we've had some good conversations about for recruitment. But we've got a lot of messaging out. We're on the social media. We're doing the best we can to get out there. We do know that we have to go out and be proactive. People just not coming to anybody, I don't think, anymore. So we're doing the best we can, and it looks like we've got a retirement in July. We have another one in September. And if we're fortunate with these 3 new firefighters, we'll be bringing on 5 before September. But at this point in time, I feel confident we'll be in good shape. And just as a reminder that you have to be a paramedic to apply to the Franklin Fire Department, so that really restricts our pool a lot. But we really do want to keep those standards at that level, because if you hire him as an EMT, you're going to incur the cost of them getting the paramedic class, and you have to pay for that backfill to attend the class. So financially, it's better for us to have that all squared away by the time they walk in the door.
Okay. You don't have to convince me.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yep.
So the additional firefighters are in the budget.
Yes.
Is that potential savings from OT, is that kind of considered in here or not yet, and that could be just pickup?
We made a slight modification at the very beginning, but
Yep.
as you know, we get our budgets in December, January,
Yeah.
and we just didn't want to make the assumption, not till really May 23rd, we'll know for sure. And
Okay.
then we didn't want to go too forward with that, but, and then I think, I do make that projection, I just want to be cautious that if there's a lot of injuries or sickness, it can really tilt that, because we still have to hire overtime to cover them. When I was saying covering those 3 firefighters, those were the 3 that were either out on contractual, vacation, or holiday. Once, if there's a lot of injuries or a lot of sickness, if someone's out sick for an extended period of time or injured officers, that really skews the numbers. So I just wanted to give that example that it was a typical week where nothing crazy was going on. So I would like to see the data for the like first 12 to 24 months before we get really pinned down what the cost would be. But to answer your question, it's not baked into this.
It's not, so it's all upside?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's
Yes.
great.
I'd like to make a comment, make a note that I had an opportunity recently to meet with the chief, his management team, and to get into the fabric of the fire department. And I can tell you with all certainty that I was very, very impressed at what's going on with our fire department. We should be very proud of that.
Thank you. We appreciate that. It's a good team. We appreciate it.
I have a question. There's a line item for vehicle maintenance here, but then it goes away. I was just curious.
So early on in the budget cycle, I had a discussion with the town administrator and the public works director. And up to that point, all of the vehicle maintenance for every town department was under vehicle maintenance except for the fire department. So we had a conversation about if that would make sense. Now they have a new fleet manager there, Jay Stearns, who does a terrific job. And it seemed to make sense with everybody that it's all under one umbrella, the vehicle maintenance for that department. I can tell you beyond that, the real value to us is up to this point in time, we're firemen. And we drop off the trucks to some of these vendors. And sometimes we don't have keys. So sometimes they'll leave the work order in the dashboard and tell us to pick it up after they close. But we're firemen, we're not mechanics. And now with Jay Incorporated, he's talking their language. So I'm not saying that vendors are doing that to us.
Yeah.
But I think now with him having that conversation, they're more on their game. That instead of talking to a fireman about an engine, they're talking to
A mechanic.
a
who knows what
mechanic.
he's
And I
talking
think
about,
that
yeah.
I think that perhaps would give us some savings down the road, just that as well. And that, to us, that's the biggest value
Okay.
for that.
We're awfully quiet. Anybody else, Heather?
Bruins are on, huh?
Yes, they are.
7 minutes.
Respect the game.
Still here.
I do have one more, just
Yeah.
Did it start? It
not
started, yeah.
related to the budget, but you had mentioned that with the addition of the 3, you would go down to 11, which is the minimum at some hours. You would have to go down to 11. Is
That's where
there-
we're at right now. That's our minimum right now.
That's the
is
minimum, but you
11.
don't really run at 11 right now, you had said, right?
That's we do run at 11. We have 13 assigned to the shift. We have
Right.
2 are on vacation, then
Then you're at
it's
11. Okay.
But once we can't go
Can't
below
go
11.
below,
That's the
yeah.
bare bones minimum. That's
Yeah.
3 on an engine company, 2 on an ambulance, and 1 battalion chief. That's
Okay.
where you come up with the 11.
Okay, thanks.
How often do we get to 11?
Well, 11 quite a bit. But the other thing I'll mention quickly about the 30 ambulances, there are times where there's only 1 or nobody out on the shift. So besides those 40 hours during the week that we'll have that 30 ambulance in, there will be other nights and weekend days when we have 14 or 13, once the battalion chief comes to work and he has 13 or 14, we're putting that A3 right in. So we will catch more days beyond the 40. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. So we will have extra coverage with the ambulance as well beyond the 40-hour work week, so. Yeah.
Awfully quiet. I'm done. Anybody else?
Thank you very much, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, really quickly, 225 Regional Dispatch. Gary Primo is the executive director. He's over here. We're grateful that Gary comes in every year. Unless folks have questions for him, the numbers are pretty straightforward. For those of you that are new, this is the first full year back with the full assessment for the Regional Dispatch Center. You'll notice the numbers for 22, 23, 24, and before are really low, and that's because we were eligible for a regionalization grant through State 911 because we regionalized 2 regional dispatch centers. We took on Mendon and Millville into the system, which made us eligible for a 4-year grant program. And as I've written about for many years, the party's now over, and now we're back on the hook for the full amount. The good news is that we had enough foresight from some of those savings years that we put away a piggy bank called the MEC stabilization account, and $500,000 from that savings is intended to go into this year's budget to make it balanced, because we knew that the amount of money from, particularly like if you look at FY23 to this year, is such a huge increase. You can't just, you need to phase that in over a couple years so that you don't obviously have to cut $400,000, $500,000, $700,000 worth of services somewhere else. So we've got about $350,000, $400,000 left in that savings bank. We'll apply it in FY26 to just continue to insert that one-time money until the full amount of the MEC is in the tax levy. If anybody has any questions regarding regional dispatch services, Gary's happy to answer them. But lastly, I'll just say you're going to get this with animal control too for the newbies. Our regional dispatch center is actually a special district under state law, so they operate. I do it on the side. I'm the chair of the board with 4 other town managers in the other communities of Rentham, Plainville, Norfolk, Mendon, and Millville. And so we have essentially what it is by law they send us a bill. They just send us the bill for the cost of service. If anybody wants to go to our board meetings, they're all online and posted and all that stuff, and people can listen to the budget discussions. But as all my colleagues on the board know, again, the vast majority of this is personnel costs for dispatchers and for staff and benefits and all the other incidentals. There is an influx of state money that is not reflected necessarily in the assessment that we get from State 911 Department. All of you pay into that fund by your cell phone bills, and there's a 911 charge. It goes into a state pool of money. They distribute it out. And I'm looking at the numbers now at the 1.309 million. And each year after this, it'll go up 2.5, 2.8, 2.2, basically between 2.25% to 3%, depending on what collective bargaining and depending on expenses. So this is now the 5th anniversary. Gary, I think it's in a couple weeks.
This week,
This week? Is it today?
Monday, Tuesday.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's 5th anniversary of the Regional Dispatch Center. And you know, we continue to look for other regionalization opportunities. We're working right now to explore whether or not regionalizing with the Foxborough Center makes economies of scale. And truth be told, right now it's really hard out there. If you were in a district, a small town like a Southborough, Medfield, Holliston, and you have your own regional or you have your own dispatch center, it's incredibly difficult to recruit right now to get a dispatcher to work like the 11 to 7 shift. So there's a lot of morale issues in a lot of other communities. But this was one of Mr. Nutting's projects, and we're just trying to do the best we can. So pretty solvent stuff in the future, and what you see is what you get.
We have prospects to bring in so that the money from the state might, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're evaluating those, obviously, with the conversation with, sorry for all the acronyms, SEMREC. That's why I say Foxborough, it just makes it easier. It sounds like Shrek and all this other stuff here. But some of the rules have changed. Some of the grant parameters have changed, and so it's kind of a moving target a little bit. But 911's been really good to work with. You know, they've always had our back. They've always had Foxborough's back, and trying to do the best they can for all of us. You know, it's a competitive program around the whole state, so you have to put your best feet forward. But you know, hopefully we'll be able to get something done pretty soon.
Okay.
I had a question on just the transfer, the stabilization. So when I look
Yeah.
at the control sheet, where did I just lose it? It's transfer, so other transfers is 2,000,007. So is it included in that number?
Exactly. The 2,000,007 is 1.507 million from free cash, and then 500,000 from the MEC stabilization. And there'll be we have to do a separate vote for that. So next week you'll see all that stuff on the finance committee agenda.
I'm sorry, free cash
Free cash.
from this year?
First time, yeah. First time in certainly my 9 years, and I think I've seen Jeff a few times recently, I can't remember the last time we've used one-time monies, other than the rainy day accounts for the schools in 18-19, but this is the 2.007 million structural deficit I pointed out on the slides at the meeting on the 24th, and then responded last week after the superintendent put out the consolidation of the schools plan. We anticipate the economies of scale will reduce that. Otherwise, you would have been looking at an $8.8 million override, which, you know, is very, very hard to pass. The success rate of that is microscopic, of that kind of number. So that's why everything the superintendent and I have been trying to work on and collaborate and coordinate with all kind of blends in together in terms of solvency of the budget in the future.
And then now I'm going in a wormhole, but so the 1.5 million of free cash, most of that we had assessed for CapEx, right, and one-time purchases.
Yeah.
So now that's shifted, right, as we've had to pull this into the budget.
So most of the, that's a great point. So most of that capital money that actually was part of that 1.5 million, for example, 450 some odd thousand of that was our 10% contribution to the OPEB stabilization account. The superintendent cut 200,000 out of their capital plan for schools. We also had anticipated some other rainy day stabilization fund deposits. So out of that 1.5 million, there was very limited funding that was actually where we sacrificed real projects. Public safety still got all of what they needed. The DPW still got what their request was. And so we felt like in order, given the budget situation for the schools, we could at least, you know, be able to patch the gap this year with that. But to your point, Natalie, in future years, we don't know what the free cash number is going to be. We don't know what those capital needs, we know obviously a little bit, but we don't know if there's any emergencies that'll be lingering out there. And that's why we don't use one-time monies to patch our budget ever. This being a very unique year with school departments, you know, everywhere in Massachusetts are having financial struggles. It is not just here. There is override. Every time I'm seeing town managers, the conversation starts with, "You have any override?" Is it this? Like, it was just with 20 mayors and managers with the governor on Monday, and I'd say easily half of them, you know, right out of the gate. "You have any override? What are you doing? How are you patching?" You know, everyone is facing this. Just on with the Middleton town manager today. She told me they're doing an override. I was on with the Brewster town manager on Tuesday. They're doing an override. So this is not something unique to Franklin. The school financing issues are a very, very big statewide problem. And so fortunately, Natalie, this year we didn't have to sacrifice a dump truck, tasers, bulletproof vests, turnout gear for the fire department. I know the superintendent lost a little bit of technology money, but that was stuff that he felt they could defray to another year.
Got it. Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
One more try. Are we all done?
Yeah, I
No,
just
we're
wanted
not.
to ask a question. I just,
No, great
on the
question.
MEX stabilization, so just, if I can summarize a little bit so I can just be sure
Go
I
for it.
understand what you were just saying. So the initial plan, because 2 million was taken out of the operating budget, was to take 500 from the MEX stabilization and, okay, got that. Now, the grant's gone, this is the cost of this. You said you were slowly gonna pull from that stabilization. What is the balance in the stabilization? I didn't see that.
About
I don't think-
400,000.
It is 400.
Yeah, somewhere around there. I'm estimating it's
Okay.
like 388.
With this 500? No,
No.
it would be 900.
It was about 900,000.
Okay, so
was in that account roughly.
That's
And I'm
what I wondered.
approximating just because I don't.
No,
know
that's
the
okay,
right
that's what I wondered. And then you would take a little bit every year. How would you, or would you replenish this stabilization fund?
We
the MEC?
wouldn't. We wouldn't replenish it. Because once the full cost of the regional dispatch is in the tax levy in the budget, the 1.309 million.
Yeah,
Next year in '26, we anticipate a 2.5% increase. FY '27 would be 2.5%. Once the full amount is in there, it'll just become part of the cost of doing business. And so you won't need a stabilization account to have savings
okay,
because the full amount of the MEC will be in the budget.
okay.
If you look at the chart, in FY
Chart
'22,
this?
we
Yeah.
only spent, well, if you look at the historical data,
Yeah,
excuse me,
I got it.
in FY '22, The full cost of the mech was really like 1.2 million.
But we had a grant.
But because of the grant,
Yeah.
the budget only had 435,000.
Got
And
it.
so we took a portion of the savings of that year and put it into a savings account, knowing that FY 25, 26, 27, and 28, we were gonna have to phase that huge cost back into the budget. And so we're kind of just slowly each year. This year we'll do 500,000, next year we'll probably include a couple 100,000, and the year after that, we'll have another couple 100,000. We'll drain the savings bank down, and then the full cost of the MEC will be fully in the tax levy, and it'll just be subject to the 2.5% increase in the budget each year.
Okay,
It's exceptionally smart fiscal policy.
I'm sure. Sounds great.
Lauren's giving me
Good job.
confidence because she's totally bobbing her head and she's like, and I'm like, yeah, I just had to say it. But
Sounds
it
great.
really, we did have a lot of foresight, and this is not a comment to our great colleagues next door, but in Norfolk and Rentham, they had the same grant, and now they're bearing that huge cost this year, and it's eating into other services for those communities. But because we saved that money in those last few years, we were able to make sure we could kind of reinstate the full cost into the budget slowly over a few fiscal years.
Let's just say an override passes.
Yep.
So this 500 wouldn't be needed?
No, it would still be needed.
I mean, it would still be needed, but it wouldn't need to come out of the MEC account.
It would.
Oh,
For FY
because of timing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, no, because the schools need the money. Right? So if I took 500,000
Oh,
of next
I'm thinking of
stabilization
the
out
60/40 in advance. So forget it. You got it. I
60/40
got it.
has nothing
I'm with
to
you.
do with
No,
this.
you're right. I
'Cause
know.
that's even FY 26. But
Yeah.
even that, we have a savings bank here to help reinstate the
Right.
full
Got it.
budget in. And so therefore, it'll be solvent by FY 27, 28. And we hope we won't need the savings account anymore.
I thought I just found $500,000.
No.
I was just really excited. Sorry. I
It's
tried.
okay.
I tried.
It's okay. No, you did. That's what we should do. That's exactly what we should do.
All right.
All right, anybody else? On to inspection. Where
I
is
know
it?
the building commissioner's around somewhere.
He's down back.
The good news here, and while Gus is walking up, he is finally at full staff. Many of you that have been around a couple years, for at least a year, Gus was solo. He did everything himself. So we're happy for him, because he can get his life back. Right?
I'll take no credit for that. The staff in the suite pulled their weight and didn't grumble once, so
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah, it's a great team effort.
pulled together.
So what is full staff? Explain that.
I have a local inspector that's full-time, and he does all the inspections out in the field, issues permits. And then the administrative assistant that I had, she retired, Judy Demers retired in April of last year, and we didn't fill that position until December. So we
So
went.
there's one inspector doing,
One inspector, one administrative staff. Actually, that's not true. We have actually 3 administrative staff. 2 of them we share with other departments, but one of my administrative staff is my full-time person.
And he has one clerk, limited time just to handle ZBA.
Right. Yeah.
And then, if people don't know Bernie and Richie, I'm
Richie's a
sorry for you.
full disclosure, Richie is a cousin.
Okay.
He's-
So Bernie and Richie are, when did they get hired, Gus?
Richie in the 50s, Bernie in the 60s.
Yeah, Richie, I
60 years of employment.
went to his
In one
birthday
job.
party, Richie's birthday party,
To the
maybe
birthday party.
8 years
Unbelievable.
ago? 7?
I can't disclose that, I'm sorry.
Sure, he wouldn't want you to
He'll-
disclose it.
He
Probably
gets,
doesn't care.
he gets cranky enough at me without me pulling his age into the
We're going down the wrong road here.
It's inspections.
Yeah.
It's inspection.
Tough
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, they're amazing.
Yeah, they
They
are.
just are. You can't, it'd be very difficult to replace them. They're doing everything online themselves, issuing permits, taking money in. It's just nothing short of amazing. And Richie stomped his feet and said he wouldn't do it. And hopefully Bernie's not listening. He's the better of the 2.
Oh, jeez.
Full disclosure.
The only other quick thing I'd point out is in weights and measures, we did enter into a regional agreement with Needham and Canton in Norfolk County, and now we don't have to do any of that service because someone else does it on our behalf. Just like you heard with the MEC, they just send us a bill, we pay it, and is his name Al? I can't remember. Is it Al? Albert? See, we don't even know.
The one that does the inspection.
Sealers and weights and
It's Bill.
Bill. That was close.
I noticed today the sticker on the BJ's pump is Norfolk County, not.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's worked out better than we could have
So when you're pumping your gas like George,
I was.
take a look at the
Always
sticker.
thinking about FinCon.
Always.
Always on his mind.
You're standing there staring at it while it puts
Yeah.
$70
Nothing
worth of gas.
Once the dollars go by.
Yeah. What the hell? I have a question. What's the total of the fees we take in? Because surely it offsets the cost. No?
By far. Maybe a couple million?
Million and a half.
Million and a
roughly.
half? 1.5 to 2, I think we can both safely.
I think this year will be a little
Yeah.
more than the 1.5.
That's revenue that goes into local receipts. So obviously you can tell he doesn't need $1.8 million in revenue to finance what he does, so that's why I always joke, be kind to your assessor and be kind to your building commissioner.
Okay. Anybody else?
Just wondering how your partnership with the police department's been going with that new accessory dwelling unit regulation, or is that
It's been flawless.
been pretty flawless?
Yeah,
Just
it's-
curious.
it's worked
I think
out
there was
well.
some skeptical that there might be some neighbor.
Yeah, we had a run on it
discussions
for a
with that,
while,
yeah.
And then it kind of settled in a little bit. We maybe
Nice.
get one a month now, but it's worked out well, and
Yeah,
no one's been denied.
I was just
Yeah.
kidding. I'm glad that it's
Yeah.
worked out. It was a pretty hot topic at town council one
It was.
evening.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's a good one.
Okay, anybody? You can go back downstairs.
Thank you.
Back to work.
Back
Step
to
back
your
in the
corner.
front window. Animal control, there's not
Again,
much
a
we can
regional
say about
agreement
that.
for those newbies with Bellingham. We house the animal control staff down at the DPW, and Bellingham manages the personnel technically, and they send us a bill every year from Bellingham. And Cindy Souza before, but Tracy Taddeo, again, another year in the books, and I've never received a complaint from anyone regarding a dog in 9 years here, which is almost unheard of in local government, and I give them just an amazing amount of credit for the work they do. They do a fantastic job.
Should we double the pay?
Well, I was gonna say, but it actually did go up 14%. Is there a piece that they're, like, is there a reason behind that, do you know? Is it just,
I think it was mainly due to salary adjustments for both the director, and we had to hire another assistant director. And so my guess is that it probably is salary. We're on a rotating schedule with Bellingham on the capital stuff. We do owe them a facility upgrade, but we did get the new trucks. They had to upgrade their gear. Every so often, the legislature kind of updates things, and we have to go out and get new modernized gear. And so my guess is maybe a couple of those instruments are probably in that expense sheet.
got it? I mean, it's still small, so just curious.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So that's the Department of Public Works.
So really quickly before Brutus and the staff are up here, I know Kathy's coming up too. Kathy holds it all together. So I won't do too much of an overview. I think folks in the room know the big change that we're now in is stormwater. If folks look at the general rate sheet, you'll see the hash marks on stormwater. That was another great financial move last year where we got the stormwater work out of the operating budget and was able to replace that with fully costing out snow and ice, and also, more importantly, finally getting $600,000 in roads money in our operating budget. Most people don't know this, but the town really never had more than about $150,000, $175,000 in its operating budget towards road work. Now we have $600,000. Again, another reason why I think the questions have come in on, like, for Brutus last week at the council meeting. Well, he listed off a lot of different stuff. While the DPW is not named in really the override, I think long-term, you know, if something doesn't pass, you're gonna see service cuts to the DPW. And for our worry, when you're looking at jobs and personnel, as Brutus and the team knows, you know, to save jobs, because you can't do work without people, okay? So you need people to do this work. And so usually what gets cut are contracts for mowing lawns, a little bit of snow and ice, road work, maintenance, crack sealing, tree trimming, crosswalk painting, all the other stuff. And so what you see here, the only new expense that's in the budget, in my presented budget, which is different than what was presented in March, in the preliminary budget, is an increase in grounds maintenance in the contract that went up to mainly deal with all the fields in town, notably obviously the schools are the ones on the fields with the schools. And so generally the remaining cost increases in here generally due to contractual obligations with the DPW and DPW contract. And I'm sure folks have a lot of questions.
I just,
Yeah, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, the one thing I do want to say that, and I brought up at the council meeting, that, you know, we start our budget process we start in November.
5 months from now?
Yeah.
4 months from now?
7 months ago, and you know, presenting to you in January, so we've been working on it, and, you know, initially it was to be, basically a level service, you know, type budget that went through, but actually, you know, our budget, through the different numbers, we cut $300,000 this year. So as Jamie said, you know, we finally got to a point where we had operating money because of, you know, different transfers and policies of $600,000, but this year, you know, we requested the same, but we only got, you know, $450, because we had to make some supplemental come, so I don't have a level funded. You know, I mean, the numbers have moved around a little, but basically, we did have to remove $150 from road improvements, $20,000, give or take, from sidewalk, trees, you know, our maintenance program that we do, and then consulting services that, you know, obviously we have to put out a lot of work that, you know, is outside our scope, so we had to reduce some of that. And then, you know, just a bunch of other small items, but actually my budget is down overall, kind of how you say is like $300,000, and then it is up if you look at it as a chief. We thought it was a good plan, like we talked about, moving the 150,000, I think it's 156, but basically from his over to ours. It just made sense. But that's kind of where we're at now, just to give you kind of a little overview of what's going on.
Just a quick question. I read today that we were awarded $928,000 in the Chapter 90.
Yes, that's a consistent number, pretty much, that
Is
we've been
that
getting.
over and above the original budget? This is a $200 million
No.
something other.
I don't want to be a buzzkill. We're working to confirm that. That was not clear in the announcement that was made today.
They listed every town with the amounts, that's why I was.
I know. I think
It's a
the
lot of money.
impression is that 929,000 for Franklin is above and beyond the, what, Kathy, maybe near million we get every year in Chapter 90?
Sounds like exactly the amount we get every year.
Yeah, that's
It's
exactly what we get.
920,
Oh.
or 930, so it might be the
PR?
only one.
If that's double,
It's
woohoo.
shocking.
I mean, we will celebrate and people will see that work, go to work right
It ain't
away.
happening. I've been on
I'm a little nervous that there's some
It was a
PR.
big- It was a big splash.
Yeah, I saw the bill sign. You know, I'm hopeful that it's double the amount. I know they were working on Chapter 90. You always testify up at the State
Yes.
House every year. If we can double the money, we're all for it. I don't know, and I think part of it is the millionaire's tax thing or whatever was supposed to be dedicated to transportation. Maybe this is part of it, we don't know. We're still waiting to get the briefing from the MMA to find out all the facts and details.
It just caught my attention today.
Where does
that's all.
chapter 90 go in the control sheet?
It's actually a grant.
Okay.
It's not, it's off budget.
Okay.
So most of our road work that I referenced a moment ago, you know, I think a lot of people, there's never enough money for roads.
Yeah.
But a lot of the road work people see in town for years has been a lot of federal, state, local coordination with MassWorks and a lot of other grant programs. It hasn't come from local dollars. But now that we've had the 600,000 in there for hopefully the second year, you know, we can make a huge commitment. And to the 40% comment, Earlier, I did put in that MOU, public infrastructure. So as we see how all the, see how everything works in the next couple months, you know, as we get to FY '26, I think the goal would hopefully be is that some sliver, portion of that 40% would be going towards public infrastructure, you know, in the tax base, because obviously that's an issue that a lot of people complain about all the time.
And is, just the whole budgeting thing, is Jamie explained a lot of the major road work that you see around town is, you know, it comes out of the capital accounts, and it could be chapter 90, our, you know, we haven't updated lately, but our water line road replacement program that we did for so long, and then a lot of grants that we get. So the tough thing is, and I think, you know, we have asset management plans for everything, and 15 years ago, we valued all the roads in town, we brought forward, as you remember, we tried to override for roads. But you know, we're kind of just maintaining, but the stuff that we do, it's not the glamorous stuff that usually comes out of the operating budget, is the crack sealing, is the chip sealing, is the, you know, the thermo type stuff we do, and maybe some mill and overlay. And that's the stuff that, what's tough is because if we neglect that, it pushes the cost farther down, and the roads don't last as long. You know, we always, you know, chip sealing, it's not always everybody's favorite. If you're familiar with that, we put emulsion down, we put stone on top of it, people think we're done, or we're not done, but that's kind of what, but it holds the road together and extends the life of a road, you know, 15, 20 years, which is better, you know, realistically, it's $1 million a mile to rebuild a road. And then, the perfect example of anybody drives a Barron Road now, and we were able to get some money from that, not through operating funds, but that's $1 million to do that neighborhood, 1 mile. And we got about 240 of those 1 miles throughout town. So we keep pushing that off. It's like the analogy I say is, you don't maintain your furnace, yeah, keep going. You know, you don't change your filters, you don't do the upgrade, but you know, eventually it's gonna fail. And all of a sudden, instead of spending $1,000 a year, you've gotta spend 40 or whatever numbers to fix it. So that's what's very concerning to me, that, you know, that our operating funds are going down for stuff like that. But we'll just have to keep driving on, do what we have.
That's actually a good segue to my next question, which was, say that, I forgot the amount, $900,000 comes through, that's a real thing. Like, I'm just curious what's like, right now it's like, are you only doing the stuff that's like, if I don't do this, that could be like public safety issue? And then if you get that 900,000, you'll just, I mean, it'll be still unsexy things, but you'll be able to do some more of the like crack sealing and all of the other stuff that
Yes.
you're talking?
We have contracts in place that, you know, because some of the money we used to get too, that's not in the operating, which always was a big thing, was the free cash. We all know it's not free cash, but it was leftover money from our departments, and in the past, a lot of it was from snow. So we were able to, you know, transfer that, and you guys were always very generous. You know, come springtime, you do an appropriation, and we get that money. And that was for the crack seal and chip seal and stuff like that. But, you know, because we've changed the budget a little, and, you know, we're setting up a reserve fund, and so there's a lot of things going on with that. But, yes, we have contracts in place, and Carlos will tell you, he has the money spent. We just gotta get it if we get it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we have a new pavement management plan that'll be coming out very shortly, finalized, which will give us a 5-year roadmap of what the worst condition roads are in town. I totally respect and understand that everybody believes they live or drive on the worst road in town. But not a lot of people go on Barron Road or some of those other roads down there off Maple. We are rebuilding Barron Road right now based on the federal stimulus money, which was a long, long story. And so, you know, we chip away at it piece by piece. You know, as everybody knows, we try to coordinate the water work, utility work, sewer work first, and then we pave everything afterwards, and then there's a 5-year moratorium. And you know, I mean, I think those are the policies that we've had in place well before I got here. Those are the small stories, I think, that are really big stories that don't get told a lot, except for at these hearings. Our staff get a lot of bang out of the buck from the positive coordination and collaboration that they do. The shrinkage of roads, the elimination of a sidewalk, 38 wide roads down to 24, you know, those things operationally save hundreds of thousands, millions and millions of dollars every year over multiple years. You're able to get more road work done, more water work done, you know, and so forth. So
And
It doesn't
less-
always show up on the sheets, you know, but they're able to make a lot more go around of it. If you look at Grove Street today, that entire corridor investment is done by grant work that we laid out with the state. I know some of you know that stuff, but just for people watching at home and new folks. That was actually a coordinated effort with the planning board on one of the projects down there. So we all work together to try to, you know, leverage all the assets that we can. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is recently Congressman Auchincloss was here to do a day visit, and he told us at a public meeting that he thought out of all the cities and towns in his district, Franklin does the best job of federal, state, and local coordination with money. And that, you know, that's, you don't get those comments often, but when you get them, you don't forget them because they mean a lot, because it's coming from somebody who's got 40 some odd towns, right? Newton, Attleboro, Fall River, and you're like, wow, okay, we're trying to leverage the money the best way we can.
The one other thing I'd just like to add, not to, and Jamie brought up a great point, you know, the things that, it's not always the most exciting type stuff, but one thing we're always thinking about Public Works is, it's not what's happening right now. Everybody's always focused on right now, like, you know, override, you know, this, whatever it is. When we look at, like, reducing roads, reducing sidewalks, we're saving money for the future. Because as Jamie says, we go from a road that's, you know, say 32 feet down to 24, and we reduce one sidewalk. Well, 20 years from now, you got 20% less to maintain in the long picture. So we're saving money for the future. We're not just trying to do it now. We look long-term, long after I'm gone, Jamie's gone, the other people, you know, that's what we're constantly doing. But it's hard to, you know, get that across to people now because they're not gonna see it. But we are honestly thinking long-term, everything that we do.
Thank you.
Any other thing you want to make a point of?
The only quick thing I'd say is just that the snow and ice budget this year was in our favor.
2 years in a row.
And
What are the odds of 3?
had to
well,
say it.
we'll see, but kind of like the MEC stabilization account that Heather brought up earlier, we're gonna propose to create a new stabilization and a new savings account. Someday, 2014 will hit again. And the amount of money we have in here due to inflation and labor costs is not gonna be able to pay the bill for snow and ice removal. Expectations are way higher, as they should be. I want pure asphalt showing right when the first flake comes to. I'm no different, I'm a citizen and a customer as well. But we're gonna propose to put the excess snow and ice money this year of $521,000 into that stabilization account as a safety net, with a goal of having $1 million just as a safety net for any egregious snowstorms and ice storms. And actually what you're seeing now is, and Kathy can speak to this as well, is you're seeing the ice is really the issue, right? Is you're seeing just a tremendous amount of salt, the brine, you know, slippery roads, you know, erratic weather where it's, one time we had like, it was like 55 degrees at like 2 in the morning, and by like 4 in the morning we had buses kind of going sideways because it was like 20 degrees and it just froze into black ice like that. Our team was out or already doing that, but you can only do so much and you need the resources to do it. So that's the only other thing I would say. And the divisions are up here. The highway division is led by Carlos. The park and tree division is also led by Carlos Rebello. Snow and ice by Carlos, and Roseanne has been a huge asset on that. And Tony, Central Motors, you just met Jay for the second time. He's sitting in the back waving somewhere. I can see him on camera a little bit. That's been a strategic investment that you can see the collaboration with all the departments. Recycling and stormwater, Derek Adams. We'll get to water and sewer with Doug and Jake shortly, but and then the general administration with Kathy and Kate and the rest of the staff, GIS. So as I remind everybody all the time, the Department of Public Works literally affects every single citizen and property owner in the town of Franklin. They are the most widely needed department, even more than some of the other ones. If you don't have kids in the district, or you don't have kids, you don't need the schools. But the DPW affects every single taxpayer.
And the only one other highlight I always say is that, you know, when you look at all the other budgets, they're pretty much all employee costs, salaries. And my budget's basically, particularly the general fund, is about 35% salary and 65% expenses. And as we all sit here, whatever you want to say, inflation's been over the last year, you know, 3%, 10, whatever it is. that's what we have to deal with. I have a lot of expenses. If you can imagine what the cost of chemicals are, what the gas of fuel is, I gotta give Kathy some kudos. We finally locked in gas for next year.
Yeah.
It was the fastest day ever, right? We were so happy. We actually got in today, so we have a projection that's gonna carry us through next year. So our numbers are good on fuel. But these are things we get, you know, Jay could tell you about parts. You all know parts. I mean, up and down, never mind availability. So it's a tricky, complicated budget. One thing we always do, we're always using a 5-year average. You know, that's how we start our budget. We look at every 5 years, where we gone, what the trends are. And that's why some things go up, well, they mostly go up, but, you know what I'm saying, down, and where to move funds through, so. But it is a tricky budget to do. It's not contractually based like a lot of departments have with their employees, so. I mean, my staff is, but it's smaller, so.
By the way, it's
I have
1-0
a couple questions.
Bruins.
Oh, okay.
I know we're,
I've
just wanna make
I
sure
have
the
a
good
couple,
news.
but
yeah.
whatever.
Okay,
You
no,
can
go
first.
ahead. I'm gonna ask about the, have you finally solved the ledge problem on the new sewer project? Seems like you've been banging away next door to Ledgewood for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
The Interceptor project.
That's
let me
why they
talk about
call,
for 11 years.
that's why they
Great
call
logo.
the place Ledgewood.
Oh, yes. We did encounter a lot of ledge in Old West Central just before you get to Pond Street. We knew it was there. We didn't know how hard it was. They actually went through those big hammer bits. They went through 6 of them. And then we had to reevaluate. So we actually were able to bring the new sewer up a couple feet, which helped them greatly. So they're out of that area now. They're still in that old West Central dead end section. There's a lot of work they had to do in there. They're gonna be working in 140, starting tomorrow and,
Day or night?
tomorrow during the day, just bringing a water main over, tomorrow and Friday. They're gonna be, overnight, Sunday night, doing a connection. And then from there, they have a couple more days to finish up, the following week, in that dead end section of Old West Central. And then probably likely in 140 doing the force main down towards Beaver, probably towards the end of May, beginning of June.
So the key statement from that, traffic.
Traffic, yeah.
Yeah.
No one really cares about the pipe. Traffic's gonna start getting awful.
Are you
towards the
gonna
end of May
close
out there.
Beaver? I forget.
When we're in Beaver Street,
Yeah.
likely
Close that?
gonna have some detours for Beaver Street. 140 will obviously be, a lot of traffic, but we will be able to keep it open. We'll be staying in one lane. We'll work with the businesses to make sure that they maintain access. So.
Don't
I've
block
seen the map, I
Duncan.
should have known. Yeah.
Don't block Duncan.
I just need to
just
get
have to
to the
drive
gym
around.
on the
You know,
other
there's
side.
people out there right now who
There's a
say,
lot of-
don't block
yeah.
That's my
Huntington
route.
either, right? Like,
That would cause panic in the streets.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one thing you just always talk traffic and detours in town is the fact that, we're always trying to figure out Franklin's, I always say it's like a wagon wheel down with the trains across the bridge and everything goes out because old farm community. So we don't have like, go up, take a right-hand turn north and south streets. I mean, detours are a big deal in Franklin. I think when we did Lincoln Street, like how far you have to go around to get around town. And we've actually been working with the schools when they're talking about how doing their redistricting plan, what's the best way for them to go? Because there's just it's tough to do detours in Franklin.
does anybody have any questions on recycling, trash, tree
Trash is
trimming?
going up, correct?
Trash is going up.
By?
Before the FinCom next week, there will be, as I've announced, I think for months, a water rate hike of 8, 8, and 8, mainly to deal with the water filtration plant and my favorite topic, PFAS regulations. Trash will go up, I think it's $30, is it $30? $50 for the year, and I
Still
think
better than 10 years ago.
It's
it's
still less
still
than-
way less than 20 years ago for
Yeah.
sure, by a
Yeah.
lot. And just so folks have a heads up, Derek did inform me that this is the last year of both the waste management and the Wheeler Grader contracts. Wheeler Graders next year, so those costs might still continue to go up. They will, but it's trash removal and it's, recycling. It is what it is, it's market-based. If anybody has any questions for Central Motors or Snow and Ice,
I was wondering about the park and tree, why it's, almost $600,000 difference in expenses.
I'm not sure, 600,000 sounds a little high.
Am I doing my math wrong? It
yeah,
was,
it's about 60.
it was 440
It's
and now
actually
it's at 1.1?
If you look at the bottom line, DPW Park and Tree,
Yeah,
FY '22 was 928, '23 was
oh,
1.05.
sorry, that must be snow and ice then.
Yes.
What's 440, 420? What line item does that belong to?
That's Snow and Ice.
That
That's
is
Snow and
Snow and
Ice,
Ice.
yep.
Okay.
And you are seeing the bigger increase there because we used to pay for a big chunk of that out of capital.
Okay,
So when we transitioned to stormwater last year, Heather,
yeah,
the amount of money that was in the budget relative to stormwater got transferred so we could fully fund
that
Snow
was
and
my
Ice.
next question. So
Yeah.
stormwater is 600 in 23, right? Am I reading the right line on that?
You are, but
And then on 24, it's 0, but where did this 600 go? So I know, because I know there's a stormwater fee, so we have the money for that. That's separate
Right.
somewhere else. I don't know where, but it's somewhere else.
So,
So do you just take this, whatever you were using, the 600, and pepper it around, or what, where did that go? Does that make
So-
sense? Did I say
Yes.
that right? Okay, okay.
it's, yeah, it's absolutely what happened. So when we actually, what I wanted to do, and it's showing this, and I just be candid, we actually put, because we're trying to show what the actual costs were. This is like a number of years ago, what the stormwater cost was coming out of our budget, that at the time, we were drawing from highway, ground, or whatever. So I created a stormwater budget inside of DPW. When we transitioned over to the utility, that was obviously reduced down. So we basically zeroed it. And at $600,000, that's what went over to give or take the operational funds for the
Oh, all
highway.
right, this is
That's
another
where that
line item that was moved, is what you're
Correct.
saying? Oh, all right.
Yep.
Okay. I thought it was moved out because you have a stormwater fee, so you have that now.
It
Instead
is.
of
It
this.
It
Okay.
is, but but there were costs that were relating to stormwater that were not necessarily in that exact line item. And then when the federal permit finally became active and we got the utility fee in, we transitioned all of those costs over to those different accounts. And I can completely understand why it's very, very hard to look at all these numbers and try to figure dollar for dollar where it went.
The layout is a little, it's kind of got me cross-eyed on it, but, so
That's because there's so many divisions within.
it's just like a lot, yeah.
And we haven't
So-
even finished yet.
I know.
This is just within the DPW. We even got the water sewer.
So I am
general.
kind of curious about that whole stormwater thing, because I know we have the fee now. You were budgeting something for it. Where is the money that was budgeted previously?
Right.
Are you lumping the stormwater fee and that, whatever it used to do, 600 grand there, together
So the
into
$600,000
the
is
new
a part of
account?
it. 600 grand is a part of it.
Yeah,
But the salaries, some of the jobs within the public works that were in the general fund that were maybe in Park and Tree or other divisions went
Yeah.
to the stormwater utility.
where can I see the line item for stormwater fee that, because I think I'm missing,
I will,
That page or
we're gonna
something.
get to it next.
oh, all right. I'm just,
Nope.
and also just any other items that were moved to the other budget that you're talking about, I just wondered where that,
So it's 424, 434 is solid waste, 440 is sewer, just going through, 450 is water, and stormwater is 460.
oh, okay,
So if you go to Department 460,
got it.
you'll basically see the $600,000 there.
Okay, there's my answer then. Okay, good. I think that this is something that a lot of people might be, I know there's droves of people watching this right now, so it's a very
they're
hot topic.
streaming on
So
YouTube
they're
and watching
streaming it,
live, they're
yeah.
checking the Bruins
In
game
between
on
the
their
game, they're
app.
flipping back. I know.
By the way,
I would
1-0
too.
Bruins, 5 minutes to go.
All right.
In the first quarter.
I
First
just think
period.
that fee, since it's, yeah,
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Sorry. Heather, I don't know if this might help. So
Yeah.
stormwater is now a service charge,
yes.
and we
right.
established a new enterprise fund, and that's why there's a fee associated. So we took it out
Yes.
of that, and now, due to all the costs, right, that Derek and I go through, and we see what we need to pay for expenses and salaries, that's where we get what the service charge has to be for each impervious surface. So that's where it's changed, right?
So for
So
this,
now we
the
set up an
enterprise-
enterprise fund.
No, what did you call it? The stormwater fee, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Service charge.
Service charge, that's, so you get X amount for that.
Mhm.
And then, did this 600 also go into that?
No,
No, that's where that cost that was in the operating budget a couple of years ago, or previously for years. And it was not always a division within the DPW. A lot of the costs relating to stormwater date back 15 years ago when the town proactively
So
did a
just
stormwater bylaw.
bring it
But
to the last
eventually,
two
over
so we
time,
understand,
it's
yeah.
just hard to explain, because over the years, as the federal regulations were changing, and the official permit called the MS4, which is the worst name possible, right? The stormwater permit came out, things just kept on, part of it is just a consistent evolution. So we tried to do over time was take out the stormwater costs in the other divisions from staff, whatever it might be, expenses, start putting it into a stormwater division within the DPW. Then we zeroed it out,
Okay, yep.
and we put all those costs into the stormwater utility service fee. Where did that money go? That money went to snow and ice and roads. So those were reallocated into the other divisions within the DPW.
Okay.
The easiest way to see most of that money is you can go back, and it shows right on here that we increased the roads,
Right.
Up to 600,000.
Yeah.
That was a lion's share of it. That's 600,000, it was 400,000 dollars went in there, but that shows the lion's share of stuff in the street sweeping, stuff like that. That just
Okay.
shows that.
Okay, thank you. I do think that sadly not everybody does tune into these meetings and learns about these utility fees, et cetera, that are coming. And I think that there's a lot of confusion or questions about, well, they've already collected for this. Now why do they have to collect more? I'm sure you get these phone calls all day long. So I just wanted to kind of explain it a little bit if we could. So
Yeah, no,
thank you.
it's
That's good.
We joked about this 5 years ago when we started doing the public outreach. I mean, this is a project I'm gonna live with for the rest of my career. And every year, new people ask new questions, and it is really important, because the rate is gonna go up, a very nominal amount this year. The big deal looking down the road is, Derek, who leads the environmental affairs, superintendent for the stormwater issues, just completed a phosphorus reduction plan, which again, all of this is unfunded mandates from the federal government, right? It really stinks. But that plan is gonna cost probably 35 plus million. That's not here yet. So-
Right, but part of
but-
it is the Charles River
That's right.
that got into this
Right.
as well. That
And now
unfunded mandate.
Because I don't have enough to do, I'm
Right.
now gonna get on some commission with the mayor of Newton and the mayor of Cambridge and all of the other cities that are impacted along the Charles River Basin to try to work better with our congressional delegation about how to relieve some of these cost increases over a longer period of time, right? I mean, when Derek came to me and said the phosphorus plan is gonna be up in the 35, no, wait there. 5 years, but, right.
That's in 5 years we're supposed to do it. That's the permit.
I mean,
We're
that's
supposed to
I
spend
know,
30
it's,
in 5
it's
years.
exciting.
That's it's actually insane.
It's
I know.
ridiculous.
It's literally insane, and there's a really big disconnect from the federal government to what's going on across our country at the local roots, right? It's all good for environmental quality, it's all fantastic for the health of the Charles River, and because we're a purely groundwater source drinking water supply, it's great for the quality of water that people have in Franklin, but it's gonna cost a fortune. Again, to your point, if there are new viewers out there watching who didn't follow this, we're giving you a heads up now, like we did to citizens 3, 4, 5 years ago who've been on the committee for a while. We gave a heads up, the fee's coming. We do get calls, but I think a lot of people actually do understand what's going on. The council spent several years doing kind of a roadshow in town of outreach, listening to people, how can we mitigate it? And I would be remiss, maybe Derek, really quickly, how can you save on your stormwater bill? Maybe you could tell people how they can save money.
So there is a credit manual online that you can access. There's two different avenues. One is for residential, which is 5 billable units or less, and one is for large users, which is 5+ units. So you can go right on the stormwater website. On the left-hand side, on the bar, you can click on the credit manual. You can see, scroll through it, see what applies to you, and there's 8 or 10 options for pieces of infrastructure you might have in your property. The main difference is if you're a business, you can't apply for a rain barrel credit, but if you're a residential, or, a small user, which is 5 billable units or less, you can get a rain barrel, and that's up to 25% credit off of your stormwater utility fee. Other items are a rain garden, and then for the larger businesses, it's usually a detention basin or some sort of subsurface drainage structure. So those are some options that folks have for saving some money.
That's great.
And I gotta give, our GIS coordinator, Kate, it's kinda like her pet project, she's here.
Yep.
The rain valve program, like, we're the envy of the state, and it's kind of, everything phosphorus reduction is kinda done by like formulas. We're getting a really good bang for our buck with, our rain valve program. And then also, the nice thing is we work in, water conservation with it too, so we're able to give rebates and, so it's really, it's a neat program. Everybody benefits from it, from the residents to us, just trying to integrate things together. And one other caveat I just gotta tell you, cause we just figured this out, so we actually got there might be some leftover ARPA money and this, that we can do some stormwater stuff, and so we're trying to permit stuff. Now we have to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers on certain things, and they have no idea how to do this because we're the first town trying to meet the permit, and we're like, you're gonna have thousands of these.
Right.
Thousands, and the Army Corps of Engineers haven't even figured out. So even if you guys gave me $30 million right now, I can tell you I probably can't spend it in 5 years. It's crazy. But this is a world we gotta live in, and we're spending all this time on it, and it's just another roadblock, because of permitting. Different parts of government don't talk to each other. It's insane. That's all I can say. Sorry.
That's what I called it 5 minutes ago.
No, it's great. At least we have nice, smooth roads, though.
Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah, in her neighborhood.
In my neighborhood,
mine
that's
too.
right.
Wait a minute.
Sherman Avenue is perfect.
Lincoln Street looks great.
Perfect.
Sherman Ave looks great.
Yeah,
All
no,
of it. Maple.
great improvements. The kids rollerblading love the new street. And I used to live right next to Barron Road, and I'm sure those people will throw a nice big party when this is over.
Yeah.
It's going to be beautiful. Yeah, it's not that great right now.
That's been decades in the making, and,
Yeah.
that was the.
Kids avoid it. They don't ride their bikes. Forget driving your car.
Well, they'll be riding their bikes
Riding
after
their-
this is done.
Oh, yeah, they will.
All right. Unless we have
Good
questions on, I think we've been through them all, correct?
Yeah, trash, water, sewer, stormwater are all ratepayer based. If you're on private septic, you don't have to pay. If you're not on public water, you don't have to pay, it's
All
a
user
private
fees.
well. I mean, these are all user fees. I just want to make one last comment, a truly last one, is people get confused about salaries all the time. By law, we can't use enterprise money for water or sewer just on any random project. Okay? They're very, very tightly monitored by DOR, and the service that you provide has to be from that. So most DPW staff, including Kate and a variety of the admin staff, their salaries are split up among a variety of accounts because that's the way the structure of the enterprise fund and the laws that are there. Kathy has all that information. If folks have really specific questions, they can call her. Our budget narrative document also explains a lot of this. But I know that it is very complicated because there's really 5 to 6 major departments and divisions within the DPW. But if folks have questions about any public projects, recycling, water, sewer projects, I know the Beaver Street Interceptor is the big one. Anybody can always reach out to us. And there's websites have all this information as well. So.
The answers usually come. I reached out to Derek the other day to find out what to do with metal frying pans, believe it or not, and he knew. He absolutely knew.
So what's the answer? What do you do?
You bring them to the recycling center and put them in with the metal. That's what he told me. Not in the recycling, right?
Correct.
And don't bury them, because they're probably made with PFAS.
You're just set the time back.
Thank you. I need a joke on it. Other than that, I think that's the last of the departments tonight. My computer froze, so I can't see the agenda.
Your computer broke. Motion to
Bad internet?
Motion.
No, it just
Yeah, second.
timed out.
All right.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn.
George,
Yes.
Natalie.
Yes.
Nicole's yes, Heather,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
William,
Yes.
Chana,
Yes.
She said yes.
She said
that's
yes.
Yes.
Michael, and Laura.
Yes.
Next Wednesday again, we get to do it again. Some of us